Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk. Jeff here. Brad, how are you, man?
I am doing well. Can't wait for the Steelers to get back in action this weekend. But it was a fun ride last weekend without having the pressure of them playing. Just watch the games, enjoy some football.
Yeah, Steelers have one of the earlier buys this year, which who knows? A team that's maybe hasn't had the success that they wish they had. I think it could bode well. Obviously, for teams that have championship aspirations, later buys typically help. But let's see if obviously the Steelers, get things under control and get rolling again. Before we get any farther, only because you brought up the Steelers, what'd you think of Tomlin's remarks about the USC job?
Oh,
I I
loved it.
yeah, I thought it was fantastic. The one thing I loved that he said at the end, in in my opinion, he's 100% right in saying that he could have just said this and it would have been enough. But obviously his spiel is great. Are you asking Sean Payton this? Are you asking Andy Reid this? I That's perfect because truly it's like nobody would look Bill Belichick in the face and be like, "Are you taking the USC job?" Nobody would say that to Andy Reid. Nobody would say that to Sean Payton. Why the hell are they saying it to Mike Tomlin? Mike Tomlin is in that category with those four guys, and potentially, no, honestly, that would be a respectable question to Pete Carroll, in my opinion, but it's not to Mike Tomlin. But apparently, people aren't backing down. They're saying he's actually involved in this. Who knows? I I have a hard time of believing that after the response that we've seen him give. But what is your opinion on the whole thing?
I get why they asked him because his name was brought up
Yeah.
by other people. But I ask going further, other people wouldn't bring up Andy Reid or Sean Payton because it's almost laughable to think that they would even be rumored to go to a college job. But I guess I just don't get it. Why would Mike Tomlin? And yeah, there are some people who think, it's really weird when I heard it on talk radio this morning. It was really weird that some people thought he could have been bringing up the possibility of race because Andy Reid and Sean Payton are white coaches, and I was like,
That
not I was like, not even for a shred of a second did I think that. It was about two other high profile coaches who have been had great careers and have won Super Bowl victory. And
yeah.
it's just, and it's just crazy to me. And a lot of people could say, well, Mike Tomlin's had Big Ben his whole career. And it's like, well, Sean Payton had 3 losing seasons with Drew Brees as his head coach. Or, Andy Reid has had Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Patrick Mahomes. So, I mean, it's nothing like that. It was basically, this is a joke. I don't have time for it. It's laughable. I love the quote, there ain't a booster with a big enough blank check. And
Yeah.
then that last sentence was basically, put some respect on my name. This is childish. And
Yeah.
then he walked out. I mean, if he wants it, as long as things don't go absolutely terrible for 4 years straight or something here soon, he could be the Steelers head coach for another 15, 20 years. I mean, the organization has had 3 coaches for 52 years. There's no it's one of the best job security spots, and man's never had a losing record, been to 2 Super Bowls, won and lost one. I mean, I loved his quote because there are a lot of coaches that, just laugh and they're like, that no. Or they're just like, kind of keep the door open. Or Nick Wright made a good point this morning. He said some coaches like that out there. It gives them a little bit of leverage. Like, hey, there's other places that want me. Mike Tomlin wants to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. He loves it there. And his next move is either promotion to GM or retirement from the NFL. I don't see him going somewhere else, especially I mean, the Steelers are doing fine.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I mentioned this to, I believe it was Tony Noel on the Facebook page, and I mean this. I'm not just saying this because you're my co-host or whatever. I'll bash the Steelers if I feel like I need to bash the Steelers. The Steelers are a quarterback away from being a very good football team. And I said this, back to being a 10 to 13 win football team. And Big Ben's all right, but he's not winning you 13 games anymore. I mean, that defense
Yeah.
needs to be very good, and it's just that's the facts of life. But yeah, I think Mike Tomlin's great. I think it's crazy, and I truly I thought his response was great too. So we'll get moving here. We got some mailbag questions to open up the pod today. Actually, that just opened up the pod, but got some mailbag questions, a couple of them here. Jamie writes in every week. This question I find kind of funny. I'm not sure if he's being serious with this, but I'm going to answer it seriously. Jamie Lato says, "Is the Madden curse alive? Brady the MVP candidate, Mahomes most turnovers so far." So here's what I'll say to this. I'll answer this first. And I'll let you go. I personally believe the Madden curse is made up. It originated because people would be on the cover of Madden, and then the very next year they would get hurt. Well, then when players stopped getting hurt, they then translated it to, well, then they had a really bad season. I think ultimately you're always going to find the Madden player, the player that's on the cover of Madden, traditionally is coming off what? A good season, right? Would you agree?
Yeah.
And anytime you're coming off a good season, 99% of the time you're going to regress. And if you're going to regress, then your season is going to be quote unquote bad numbers or whatever. You know, a couple of years back, Brady was on the cover, wasn't hurt. A couple of years back, Lamar Jackson was on the cover, wasn't hurt. Patrick Mahomes was on the cover, I believe, just last year, correct? He got hurt for a day. I mean,
he was on 20. 21 was Lamar Jackson.
okay.
Which, yeah, so.
And then Brady was either on 19 or 18, I don't remember. So then I don't
18,
remember who was on 19.
18 was Antonio Brown. I can't think of 19 right now.
19 was Brady GOAT edition, maybe. Regardless, I think at the end of the day, I don't know that I necessarily believe in the Madden curse. I think it's kind of one of those things that did have some credibility for a minute there and has really kind of worn off. Maybe that's what he means by "is it alive?"
Yeah.
I guess. Well, I'll let you go here.
Yeah, Madden curse is definitely a real thing. Injuries and poor play. I definitely believe in the Madden curse. Patrick Mahomes is getting the poor play, and then Brady's lucky enough that ex Madden cover athlete Antonio Brown and ex cover athlete Gronk are taking some of the injury curse away from Brady. I think.
Yeah.
They're taking one for the team, and only a fellow Madden cover athlete can take that pressure away. So they're all having good seasons, but AB and Gronk are kind of taking their turns missing games so that Brady doesn't have to, he can pirate the ship. And he also lucked out again. Patrick Mahomes is taking 50% of it on his own shoulders right away, maybe even 60 to 70. So Brady lucked out that his co-cover athlete is taking some of the curse, and his fellow ex-athletes AB and Gronk are taking some of the curse as well. So Madden curse is alive as well, but if there's one guy who defeats any stigma, it is and only has been Tom Brady, as he continues to do such.
Well, folks, that's a wrap. That's going to be the end of the pod. We'll keep it moving here. Kyle, weekly listener. Other than the Cardinals round 2, what stops the Rams?
Injuries.
Injuries? Anything else?
No. I mean, other good teams. I mean, you look at there's 5 one-loss teams in the NFC. So I mean, once they get to the playoffs, it's going to be tough. But no Russell Wilson. 49ers aren't what we thought they were. So in division, it's really only the Cardinals right now. And the Rams did not win their division last year, so they have a second place schedule, and they already played Tampa and beat them. I don't believe they draw the Packers. This team is going to compete for a number 1 seed. They're going to 100% make the playoffs unless injuries completely cover this team. Once we get to the playoffs, that's a whole different story, but I assume this question is right now at the regular season. For the foreseeable weeks 8 to 18, what stops the Rams? What team would you take over the Rams that they still have on their schedule other than the Cardinals, like you pointed out? None. So it'd be injuries. Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey. They can't afford to lose the big 4 or 5 guys, Robert Woods. But if Woods, Kupp, Stafford, the offensive line, Jalen, Aaron Donald, if those guys stay healthy, this team, there's a reason on our power rankings they're top 5, oftentimes top 3. So injuries.
Yeah, I mean, obviously injuries would be the key there. But I took this as a postseason question. If you're asking me who stops them in the regular season, I mean, this team's winning at least 12 games. They're at least 12-5 minimum, which is going to be a top couple seed. The funny thing is they're currently the 5th seed. And personally, I mean, what stops them? Arizona beat them already. They beat Tampa, but truly, I mean, I like Tampa in a playoff game. Green Bay, if they have to go to Green Bay, that's a tough out. Going to Dallas or even having Dallas come to you, that's a tough out. The Saints are currently a playoff team. I think they're a tough out if for some reason the Saints were to be able to get in front of them, which I don't think they would. The NFC is very, very top heavy. The top 5 teams, Rams, Cowboys, Packers, Bucks, Cardinals, anybody's game. I guess that's how I would answer your question. And then obviously if they get to the Super Bowl, we'll talk about some AFC teams later. We won't get too much into that. But yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I just looked at their schedule. The Rams don't have smooth sailing. Just a few opponents that they play: Titans, Packers, Cardinals, Seahawks, because it looks like Russ will be back by then. Vikings, Ravens. So I mean, they still have a really.
Was that 4 playoff teams, 5 playoff teams right there?
They've got a tough schedule, but the rest of their division plays a lot of the same opponents. But this is a team that will make the playoffs. Again, we're too far from the postseason. I did take this as a regular season question. The goal is to make the playoffs. Only injuries can stop the Rams, because even against those 5 playoff teams, I'd still take the Rams to go 3-2. I still like them in most of those games.
And truly, I think the only way this team, speaking of injuries, the only injury that would take this team out of a legit playoff contender, I think, is Stafford or Donald. Maybe Ramsey. You could even lose one receiver. I think this team's still okay. Or you could lose another running back. This team's still okay. They're just too well coached, too well schemed. I think they would have to have a massive injury. But one of their top 3: Stafford, Ramsey, Donald, and it would have to be big time. Moving on here, another Stafford question. The last one wasn't Stafford question, but it is now. Was Stafford just missing a real number 1 wide receiver since Johnson left? I thought Jamie Lato commented and actually answered this beautifully. The Detroit Lions, if you're listening to this pod and you think, oh, here we go, Jeff and Brad just shit on the Lions all day. Listen, you guys, I am from Michigan. Okay, I was born in Detroit, and personally, I wish sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I do wish that I was a Lions fan so that I could claim 100% Detroit pride. But the one thing that I've never bandwagoned anything. I've never been a Lions fan. Like, never for even a day was I like, oh, I'm a Lions fan. That it was just never a thing. And the reason why is because they don't put any effort into running a successful franchise. You cannot be, under any circumstances, this bad for this long, and you've had a top 5 running back and a top 5 wide receiver. Top 10 wide receiver easily. Top 3 running back most likely. And to be honest, and you had a generational talent at quarterback with Matthew Stafford, and you've been historically bad for so long. I'm sorry, the ownership there is atrocious. It's a very, very, very poorly run organization. It's the most poorly run organization in the entire league, bar none. It has been for years, and there's a lot of Detroit fans that are they're nodding along like, yeah, Jeff's nailing it on the head. You guys, I wish Detroit was better, just for the sake of Detroit being better, A. But B, and I'm not a big second team guy, but I would root for the Lions in the sense of like, yeah, go Lions if they would be able to get good. Just like I tell you guys how much I like the Titans, how much I like the Panthers, because I see teams that are progressing and building from within. I want to root for them. Right now, I'm really liking the Bengals. Obviously, I'm a Patriot fan, but there's teams that I enjoy because of how they build themselves. The Lions, I wish that could be them. But they're hot dog water.
Yeah. Madden 13, Calvin Johnson was on the cover of Madden. Madden 25, Barry Sanders was on the anniversary cover. That makes 2 Madden cover athletes. And in the last 60 years, they have more Madden cover athletes than playoff wins. In the last 60 years. This was not a one-player fixable thing. This is not just a good wide receiver. We always talked about, how do they have Calvin? Didn't they have Matt Stafford and Calvin Johnson the year they went 0-16? Correct me if I'm wrong.
They did
Who did
not.
they have that year?
Stafford was drafted because of the 0-16 team.
Okay, but they had Calvin at the time.
Calvin for 1 year. It was his rookie season or second year. I don't remember.
Okay, yeah, but I'm just saying, we still saw Matt Stafford and Calvin Johnson, and they maybe made the playoffs. It's, from the top down, I don't know what they do. I've never been in an NFL organization, but clearly they've just never been good, and it's not even like a one-off year where they were great, like the Jaguars kind of had, or when I was born, the Bills were never good, now they're good. The Bengals were never good, now they're good. The Browns were never good, now they are. Like, eventually teams figure it out. How come the Lions never have? I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
And
But no, I don't think one wide receiver fixes that for Stafford.
And Kyle, to answer your question even deeper, only because I'm a football guy. I've been playing fantasy for so long; it's really easy to remember who teams had in certain time periods. Look it up. Matthew Stafford had both Calvin Johnson and Roy Williams at first. Roy Williams went away. Then he got Golden Tate at one point. Okay, Golden Tate is a very respectable receiver in this league, especially in his prime. He was a very good receiver. It was more than that. The team is historically bad and poorly run. Kyle got one more here for the trifecta. After close primetime losses the last 2 weeks to Seattle, would Cam Newton on a veteran minimum give them better results than Geno? Parentheses, a sad Seahawks fan.
No. Cam Newton's better, but the time you get him in there, teach him the scheme, he plays a few games, Russell Wilson's back. Why even bring him in? No.
I 100% agree. 100% agree. Here's the thing. You're talking about a guy that respected Cam and liked Cam last year and wish things would have worked out. So I'm a slight Cam Newton fan. Am I a homer for Cam? No, absolutely not. I'll tell you how it is. Don't tell me that Geno Smith, who I believe has been in you know better than me, Kyle, you're a Seahawks fan. I believe he's been the backup for Russ for several years now, like 3 years, 4 years, 4 years. Okay, I thought it was a good amount of time. That is a fair amount of time. Imagine a rookie coming in and having his entire his rookie deal. That is essentially what Geno's been on, right? He has been studying under Russ this whole time. You know the offense way better than what Cam Newton would get in essentially a 2-week time. I'm sorry, but Geno needs to be good enough. And the thing is, this just proves what we've been saying for a long time. Without Russell Wilson, what is this team? They are only good at what Russell Wilson is good at, period, point blank. Their only score the other night was some people say it was pass interference offensively, but it was basically DK Metcalf mauling a man. Outside of that, what do they do that's good?
Their touchdown pass was 84 yards, which was a screenplay.
Yeah.
The rest of his 11 completions combined were 83 yards.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And Pete Carroll likes to run the ball, plays a little conservative anyway. It's just with Russ, his connection on the deep ball and his ability to extend plays. I don't think Pete Carroll's a great NFL coach. I mean, outside of Russell Wilson, he's kind of been, and you can say that a lot of, coaches, if they don't have a good quarterback, they don't play well. But again, I don't think it's worth looking into too much. I think it's kind of like the Steelers, like for the past 5 to 8 years ish. If Ben goes down, the offense is terrible. You never had a great backup. So when Russ goes down, it's not worth it to keep bringing in new guys and cycle through this and that. You just got to, hope your defense can win you some games and the running game shows out. I don't think it's worth pulling your hair out and bringing in multiple guys for a backup spot when, Russ is going to be back in 2 to 3 weeks anyway.
Completely agree. And we have a trade.
Just happened?
Yeah. So the Saints are trading for former Saint running back and current Texans running back Mark Ingram.
Wow.
So they're bringing Mark Ingram back, okay? But
cool.
as this is happening, Brandon Cooks tweeted out, "Such bullshit, such a joke." Brandon Cooks, obviously being one of the locker room leaders in Houston, sees that this team's now officially trying to tank, maybe he tries to force his way out. Obviously,
Yeah,
he's had a
because
productive season on a really bad team.
if they're trying to get rid of Deshaun Watson for all these picks, they may start shopping all their players to have a complete and utter rebuild. I wonder if
Yeah.
this is a sign that the Deshaun Watson trade is going to go through to Miami. If they're already committing to releasing all these other players. But it could also be such bullshit because maybe Brandon Cooks wanted to go back to the Saints and they took Mark Ingram back instead of him.
Brandon Cooks needs to come back to New England. I'm not just saying that.
Go
I
back
think
to the Rams, dude.
oh, how nasty would
Go
that
back
be?
to the Rams. Have a year.
That would be nasty. All right. We're done with the mailbag, but I have some fun questions. I put a lot of thought into these questions this week to discuss. And the one thing I'll say before I get into this next question, I listened to a fantastic podcast this week. Every Tuesday, Tom Brady and Jim Gray record a podcast called Let's Go. I just spoke about it last week on the pod. And the reason I'm bringing it up again this week is because they had an hour and a half panel where they brought the biggest names in all of football on this call, on the Zoom call, and each of them got to ask Tom Brady one question. Okay, the biggest names in football, you name it: Jim Nance, Steve Young, Chris Broadstand, Colin Cowherd was on there. Gosh, I'm forgetting a ton of names. So many people were on this call, and they all got to ask him one question. Pam Oliver was on there. Anybody that you see on your TV weekly was on there. I go listen to it. Go give it a listen. Go dedicate an hour of your life to listen to this pod. It's fantastic. If you hate Tom Brady, you might not after this pod. If you love Tom Brady, you'll love him more. I thought, first off, Tom Brady's a great interview, but I thought this whole thing was fantastic. Brad, if you haven't given it a chance to listen to, I highly recommend it. But here's my question. So Tom Brady this past week threw his 600th touchdown, and it's continuing to grow. I think he's at 602 now. Okay. Do you see this being broken with the current game? And is that player currently in the league? There's a lot to consider here. The fact that the game's changing, so there's more scoring. You know, Tom Brady, his first 8 years in the league, only averaged, I think, like 28 or 29 touchdowns a year. And now players are averaging over 30, over 40. And then also, he has the longevity. Do you think it does get broken? And is that player currently in the league?
I think it does get broken. I mean, eventually over time, especially with the expanding of more games as well coming in.
Yeah.
And it's a pass heavy league, and I don't know. You see some struggles with Mahomes right now, but you look at a young and upcoming quarterback in Josh Allen. If he has the longevity, he's going to throw a lot of touchdowns. And obviously, this doesn't directly link that he's going to be better than Brady. Okay, that's not what this is. It's about just passing touchdown
No,
numbers.
I'm just asking you a question. Yeah, I'm not insinuating you're calling anyone the GOAT.
Yeah, but I mean, someone who might have longevity. You look at guys like Dak Prescott, who's going to get a lot of passing touchdowns. Josh Allen, Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow are still under 24. I mean, if these guys play 15, 16 years and throw 30 touchdowns, I mean, it is such a long number, and he's played 22 seasons, and it's kind of crazy, but I do believe it gets broken, and I have no reason to say that it couldn't be by one of the guys now when you look at the amount of offensive coaches, the pass heavy league, things of that nature. But yes, especially with 18 games right around the corner, it looks like for the NFL. It's hard to put a name on it, but yes, I do think eventually it will be broken unless he plays, another 3 years and maybe hits 700. 33 touchdowns a year for 3 more seasons. He could even hit 700. So I don't want to speculate yet because he's not done. But if it stays at 600, he will not be the only quarterback at 600.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I agree or disagree. I think it's such a hard question. One of the reasons I asked is just because I wanted a quote unquote unbiased opinion. But I think that just doing some simple math, if a player played 15 seasons, which is a long time in the NFL, that is a very great career, they'd have to throw 40 a year. So, I mean, it's a lot just to get to 600. That's not even including what he's going to throw. Gosh, I mean, he still has 10 games to go. He's going to throw another 30 this year at least.
You kind of look at players who can spike. Like, so if Patrick Mahomes, even though he's playing, he's got a lot of turnovers, he could still potentially have 30 to 35 touchdown passes this year. And he had one season with over 50. So some quarterbacks are going to have those spikes where, like, they're going to average in the 30s and have spikes in the high 40s and 50s. And again, you just see so many passes. You see guys throwing fades at the 2-yard line instead of running it now. So, I mean, there's just so much. There's so much passing in the game, and I would have to believe that passing numbers and yardage numbers are going to spike, and some of these young quarterbacks are going to have tremendous numbers.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. All right, so this next one I got here, I'm going to give you first and second year wide receivers, so rookies, sophomores, okay? And I want you to grade them, give them a letter grade, A, B, or C. Okay? And the players that you give an A to, I'm going to have you rank those players afterwards. All right?
Okay.
And I think this is fun because there's some really good wide receivers that have come into the league and that are really spiking. If there's somebody I don't name, let me know. I think I got them all, though. At least the really good ones.
I'm going to try, yeah.
Jerry Jeudy.
C.
Wow. I don't disagree. I didn't expect you to be that harsh, but I don't disagree. Henry Ruggs.
I know you're going to name a lot of good young, like, I got to set the bar somewhere. And
you know who's coming.
He's going to be a C out of these guys. Henry Ruggs, B.
B. Okay. Jalen Waddle.
Gosh, I haven't really seen a lot of him, and he's had like 2 quarterbacks turmoil. I'm going to give him a B because he looks like a playmaker, but I just haven't really seen enough.
Do yourself a favor. Look up his stats. They're actually really good. He's actually putting up similar stats in a team that has won one game. Right? One game, or they finally win a second one? Yeah, they've won one game. They're hot dog water, and he's putting up good numbers. Devonta Smith.
B.
Disagree.
Okay.
Justin Jefferson.
A.
Jamar Chase.
A.
CeeDee Lamb.
A.
Did I forget anyone?
It's kind of no Chase Claypool, but it's whatever.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Now, mind you, he wasn't first round like the rest of these guys. The rest of these guys were all first rounders.
To be fair, he was second round, but he was the Steelers' first pick.
Let's throw Chase in there just for fun.
I think I'd say B though.
Okay, yeah, I think B's fair. He's definitely not A, but he's definitely B. I think the only one we really disagree with is Devonta Smith. I think if he's not a C, he's B minus. He's borderline C right now. He hasn't done enough. And Jerry Jeudy, only because you gave Jerry Jeudy a C, and I agree. I think Devonta Smith is pretty much on par with him right now. CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Those are the 3 I assumed you would give A's to, which I would 100% agree. Holy hell. 3 elite receivers, great players. All these guys, the Cowboys, the Vikings, the Bengals are all very happy they drafted these guys. Now I need you to rank them. I think we're going to agree, and then I think we're going to slightly disagree.
We're not going to agree.
Who's 3?
Justin Jefferson.
Agree.
I'm going to put Chase at 2. I like CeeDee Lamb as number 1.
No, I got Chase at 1 by the end of the year, though. But CeeDee Lamb he's a dog. Let me say this though, because I agree with you. I had a feeling we were going to agree. I also think Justin Jefferson, by the way, though he's an A, I think Chase and Lamb are A pluses, and I think that Justin Jefferson's like A minus. I don't even think
I think all these guys would fall in my top 12 receivers. So like me putting Justin Jefferson at
3.
Huh?
All of these guys are just the three. The
No,
three A's.
the three A's. Yeah,
Okay,
the
yeah.
three A's I think would all make my top 12 receivers in the league. So like me putting Justin Jefferson 3 here, he could still potentially be, in my opinion. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but he could be the 10th best receiver in the league, which is still amazing. But
Yeah.
I love CeeDee Lamb, and I was, when we did our pre-draft stuff, I was kind of the guy who was like, you might see Jerry Jeudy first because the Broncos right now, blah blah blah. But I said in 2 to 3 years, and especially by the end of the rookie contract, we would talk about CeeDee Lamb as the best wide receiver because there was that discussion: Oklahoma, Alabama, Jeudy, and CeeDee Lamb in the same draft, and I was like, CeeDee Lamb fell all the way to 19. It was crazy, and I was like, this dude's gonna rock, especially when he got Dak. I was like, absolutely, he's gonna
Wasn't
flirt.
he was drafted for sure after Ruggs? Wasn't he drafted after Judy too?
Yeah, Jeudy was like the first one taken. I think he was a
Ruggs was.
single. Are you sure?
I'm like 99%
Oh,
positive.
they went like 11, 12, didn't they?
Yeah.
They both like they went. Yeah, but still, CeeDee Lamb was like 7 picks after them, and he's the best out of that draft class.
Oh, 100%. And
Well, it's the same draft class as Jefferson, so wow, that's a isn't it?
Jefferson was the fourth receiver taken. He might even be in the fifth.
He was the fifth because the Eagles took Jalen Rager instead of Justin Jefferson.
You're right.
They took
Also,
Jalen Rager, and then the
Laviska Shenault
Vikings.
was the first rounder too, right?
I think if he was like 31 or 32, like
Yeah.
tail end, like they grabbed him. But yeah,
Yeah. Boy, oh
wild.
boy. Yeah. Okay. That's all I got. I'm ready for power rankings if you are.
Ready as I'll ever be.
So I find myself doing this often, and I don't want to say it's a cop out, but I don't know who you have in your top 10. We don't ever talk about this, but I went through and legitimately thought to myself, who could make my top 10 this week? And I only could come up with 12 teams, like only that I could even make a case for. 13 and down, I'm sorry, I have more cases that you aren't a top 10 than you are a top 10.
Yeah, we have
So
the same.
I made a top 12.
Okay.
Okay. 12. New Orleans. They are borderline 12. They are borderline 12. The only reason they're 12 is because they're still winning football games. In my opinion, they had the most question marks coming this season. They lost a Hall of Fame quarterback. Their Pro Bowl wide receiver who broke records a year and a half ago still isn't healthy. They had the worst cap situation by a mile coming into this season. They didn't even start their first 3 games of the year in their own stadium. They couldn't practice. They've had so much turmoil. At one point, they had 6 or 7 coaches out, and they still continue to win. I know you're holding your face here. I have more arguments that they're a good team than they're a bad team. I'm sorry. They're a team
I
for
have
me.
12 teams on my paper. Like I have my first 2 left out, and I just can't believe you're gonna put the Saints in over the Browns.
No, I'm sorry. I'm out on the Browns. I'm out on them.
I see that, but that's just shocking to me. If they played right now, you'd take the Saints to beat the Browns.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah, I
right.
would. I'm out on them.
Okay.
I'm not so sure they're not the worst team in their division.
Okay. It's football, baby.
Yep. Number 11. I love this team. I love the quarterback. I don't love them as a Super Bowl favorite, but they are borderline a top 10 team. They just missed it this week. LA Chargers. There's a lot to like. They're terrible against the run, and their defense isn't that great, but they're an offensive juggernaut, and it just seems like when they don't score points, they look atrocious, much like how Baltimore embarrassed them. Probably my biggest dropper this week, and I'm not out on them, so I don't want you guys to think that I just overreacted last week. Baltimore. I have Baltimore at 10. I still love Baltimore. But the problem is I have them at 10 because literally almost every team above them has either beaten them or I just am not so sure that they would beat them today. I need to see more. The Baltimore has lost a ton of pieces this year. I still have a lot of hope for them, and I think they're going to win that division. I have them at 10. 9. I can't keep disrespecting this team. I have the Raiders in. The Raiders continue to freaking win games. They beat Baltimore. They did lose to the Chargers, though if they played them again at home, I think they probably win. That game was at LA. I like the Raiders at 9. 8. This team. This is probably like my new team that I'm going to talk about every week. Much like you guys got annoyed that I talked about the Titans or the Panthers. I love the Bengals. I'm obsessed with them. I'm obsessed with Jamar Chase. I'm obsessed with Joe Burrow. I love everything about them. And truthfully, I listened to the Colin Cowherd podcast this morning, his personal podcast, and he had Zach Taylor, the coach, on there. And another great listen. I know I'm telling you guys all these other pods. Listen to mine first, please, and Brad's. Listen to Real Talk. But before we go there, like the Bengals at 8, I love them. Unfortunately, I have them at 8 because they lost to this team, the Packers, at 7. Green Bay, I'm just not ready to pull the trigger that they're a top 5 team yet, and I think I have them in the right spot. I think I could argue them a little bit lower and a little bit higher, but I think I have them right around where they're at because I think they would lose to this team, the Titans. The Titans, let me give it to you straight with them. I loved them. I fell off them. I'm back on them. And here's why I'm kind of in this roller coaster with them. Week 1, they get embarrassed by who? The Arizona Cardinals. How many losses do they have? Oh, that's right, 0. Okay? They probably poorly game planned against them, thinking that they were probably a 7 or 9 win team like we did. And truly, that team jumped off the page against them. They got sticker shocked. Then they win a couple games. They lose to the Jets without their top 2 wide receivers. What do the Jets do? They stack the box. They get the W. Since then, they've beaten everybody they've played. Really, they have one legitimate good loss. I would argue this team they have one loss when they're fully healthy. So I like the Titans at 6. 5, a team that actually lost to Buffalo or lost to the Titans. I have Buffalo here. I go back and forth on these two teams because I think the Titans could beat them again, but I also think Buffalo could beat them again. I think it's all going to depend on the matchup and on the day because Buffalo is very good, and truly you could say they came a stumbled goal line trip away from beating them. So Buffalo at 5. I like all these teams more than Buffalo, though, and I really like Buffalo. 4, Dallas. I think I had this exact same ranking last week, maybe. I'm not quite sure, but 4, Dallas. I really like Dallas. They've won every single game since losing week 1 to Tampa. 3, the Rams. I think ultimately the Rams are a better version of Dallas. You could argue right now that Dallas has really great players outside of their defensive line because DeMarcus Lawrence is out. The Rams are literally the exact same team with just better options. Stafford and Dak, pretty comparable. I think some people would take Dak, some people would take Stafford. The wide receivers are pretty comparable, but the Rams are just super efficient with theirs rather than throwing it around the field. And then obviously they have Ramsey where the Cowboys have Diggs. And then they also have Aaron Donald, who's the outlier on that team. That's why I have the Rams at 3. Number 2 and 1, the reason I have this team at 2 is because they've lost. It's Tampa. Truly, a lot of people are going to make a fuss about their corners. Who gives a shit about their corners? You literally can't outscore them. The Rams did when they played a perfect football game. Literally a perfect football game. Go back and look at the box score. I mean, legitimately, Tampa is they're something else. What they did to the Bears this past week without Gronk, without Antonio Brown, it just seems it doesn't even matter. Mike Evans was out there bossing kids up. Honestly, it didn't even seem like he played that great of a game. Tom Brady had a pretty poor game and threw 4 touchdowns. Truthfully, Tampa they're unreal. But I have this team at 1 because they've beaten literally everybody they've played. I've picked them to lose a couple times this year, and they haven't. And I just think they got too many dudes. The only reason I think this team will lose is in a coaching mismatch because they don't have a mismatch anywhere else on the field. They got bosses everywhere. Defensive line, linebackers, corners, even their running backs that you could say are just questionable average backs are having good seasons for them. And then obviously they're stacked at wide receiver. We all know that. Hopkins, A.J. Green, Christian Kirk, Rondell Moore, who's turning it on. And then the current MVP of the league, Kyler Murray. that wraps it up.
Yeah, our list is pretty similar. Just a few things switched around. I'll be quick. I have the Browns and Chargers as the first two teams out. Chargers, I believe, are worthy of a top 10 spot, but last game we saw they got destroyed and then they were on a bye week, so I haven't really had anything to refresh my memory on them. So currently they're going to be the first team out. Number 10, I also have the Ravens. They barely beat the Lions. They have 3 one-possession wins. They're barely winning games. So I just think that yeah, Lions are the worst team in the league. So if you barely beat them with a field goal, it's going to hold against you. But still, you're a top 10 team, and I still think there are ways to limit this offense. They're going to be number 10. Number 9, I have the Raiders. Derek Carr is playing out of his mind. Leads the league with 5 games at 300 or more passing yards. Last game against the Eagles, he went 31 for 34, and one of his incompletions was an interception that went off of his wide receiver's hand. So, like, you could argue that it's not even his fault. Number 8, I have the Titans right now. They are playing amazing. I am gonna, pull the strings a little bit because they did lose to the Jets, but I do defend them in the fact that this year they lead the league in players who have been on the IR, and they're still 5-2. And again, punter, corner, defensive lineman, wide receiver. They had their JV team out there against the Jets and still took them to overtime. Close, winnable game. Didn't go their way. Number 7, I have the Bengals. They've really been good both ways. Their offense is nuclear at times. Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow. That's quite the three-headed monster. And their 2 losses, a weird 3 interceptions on 3 straight attempts by Joe Burrow against the Bears, and they lose by a field goal. So they play terribly and lose by 3. And they had the wild kicker game versus the Packers that could have gone either way. So you look at this team, they're blowing out teams that they should beat by a lot. The Steelers, the Lions, they're taking care of business. And then when they play good teams, they're able to still beat them handily or win. I only have the Packers ahead of them because, Packers 6-1, got to give them the record advantage, and they won head to head. I know that was a completely even game. You could have either team ahead of each other, but I felt like it would be wrong to put the Bengals ahead of the Packers since they won head to head. Number 5, I have the Dallas Cowboys. They do have some reasons to be above the Bills. I just think the Bills are still a better team, but the Cowboys 6.6 yards per play, number 1 in the NFL, and they are currently on pace to be the first team ever with 2 1,000-yard rushers and 2 1,000-yard receivers. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Tony Pollard, Zeke Elliott. That's crazy to me. All of them are getting in. And in fantasy leaders, their tight end Schultz is number 5 in fantasy points among tight ends. So their offense hums. They have outgained every opponent they've played this year, including Tampa, who they lost to. Which that's a nice only loss on your record. And they have the defensive player of the year currently. I just made a lot of reasons as to why I probably should have put them above the Bills. The Cowboys are playing absolutely ridiculous this year. But the Bills 4-2, they have the number 2 scoring offense and the number 1 scoring defense. They have 2 shutouts on the year, and they're really, I think, a Josh Allen slip away from beating the Titans, which changes the whole landscape of things. But what we do need to get prepared for on the Bills is their next 3 games are Dolphins, Jags, Jets. So they're probably not moving anywhere on the rankings, and they have a pretty weak schedule. Number 3, Rams. Great both ways. Sean McVay 42-0 and leading at half. And something that's crazy is they've allowed the fewest sacks in the league. So when we just talked about earlier, keep Matt Stafford healthy. I mean, he's been sacked the fewest times in the league. He's got no-look passes. He's dropping deep. And people talk about, oh, man, well, they played close to the Lions, Brad. What about the Ravens? The Lions were 6-0. Jared Goff returning, and Dan Campbell, fake onside kick, 2 fake punts, throughout all the stops, and still ended up getting beat by 9 by the Lions. Matt Stafford threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Offense do whatever they want. They literally treated that as a do or die, pulled out every trick in the playbook just to keep it close in the end. Again,
it was their Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they couldn't beat the Rams. So,
yeah.
And Jared Goff had maybe 3 pass attempts over 10 yards, and one of them was caught by Jalen Ramsey. So, number 2, again, Number 2 and 1 are Tampa and the Cardinals. Even though Tampa lost to the Rams, Tampa currently right now is playing unbelievable football. Their offense does whatever they want, however they want, as long as they want, to whoever they want. And their defense, I know their secondary has issues with injuries, but their front seven is so filthy, and you literally cannot run the football on them, that you're pressured so quickly from so many different angles, and you're so one-dimensional by the second half that you look at the turnover margin in the second half, and the Buccaneers get almost free interceptions at times because of the pressure. And, any team in the NFL, when you become one-dimensional, that you're at a disadvantage. And number 1, Cardinals, until they lose, I cannot take them from the one spot. They could have 1-point wins to the bottom 5 teams the rest of the way. If you have 0 losses, that's the name of the game, man. I can't move you out of one until you lose, no matter how ugly they are. Once you have 1 loss, I can move you anywhere on this list because of how pretty or bad, but you haven't lost. You've won them all. And Kyler's number 1 in completion percentage this year, probably the current MVP. And you look at the flip side, they're number 1, tied for number 1 in the NFL, allowing only 16 points a game. They're doing it on both sides. And just a little news update, if you didn't know, J.J. Watt's shoulder is out Thursday against the Packers. So,
Yeah.
but they get Chandler Jones back, so it's kind of like a swap there.
Yeah, JJ out, Devontae Adams out, Alan Lazard out. What was shaping up to be a massive NFC matchup, which is still going to be. It is looking a little less than what it was supposed to be. I will say this. I've said a couple different times that I think Tampa's. I think they're going to win the at least the NFC and represent in the Super Bowl. We'll see who they play. Arizona presents a very unique matchup to them because they do multiple things that Tampa is not good at. So, like you said, they stopped the run. Okay. They have arguably the best running quarterback, him and Lamar, Kyler. Kyler can give them enough time to move around and can be one-dimensional because there ain't a single player on that roster that can defend their wide receivers. I mean, not only does Tampa have 0 corners, they need at least 2, and they don't have any. Arizona, what they can do to teams is it's not fair. And truthfully, shame on both of us for not really dissecting them before the season to really see that. Just looking at them, when you line up against Arizona, and we didn't know how good Rondale Miller was going to be, and he's not. I'm not trying to say he's like an elite A+ receiver, but he's good. He's very comparable, and we know that Christian Kirk's comparable. And AJ Green, he showed us never a reason to think that he's bad. He just kind of got hurt. He's been very good this year.
I just want to say there's about 6 things off the top of my head. They lost Patrick Peterson. AJ Green has been injured and declining the last 2 years. JJ Watt.
Years ago, he never played. Last year, he played in a limited role.
Right. JJ Watt had been injured. Isaiah Simmons, year 2, will he make the jump? Yeah. Rondale Moore, the rookie, would he make the jump? And Kyler, would he be more mature, understanding, and really commit to football? Because there was a lot of stuff about baseball potentially.
So you had still
correct. So you had a 8-win team that barely missed the playoffs and 7 question marks. But literally all 7
they nailed them all.
Have gone for the Cardinals. I do think we analyzed them, but again, before the season starts, you have to remember AJ Green, question mark. JJ Watt, question mark. Kyler, question mark. Is the dual-headed backfield that they got going to work? Isaiah Simmons wasn't the rookie we thought he was. Will he make the jump? But literally every single question mark, like we just said, has gone in the favor of the Cardinals, and it's made them an absolute powerhouse. They're a tank, the whole team. So I don't want to criticize ourselves too much to man, if we would have broke down and analyzed, we should have known that they were going to be at least, a 5-2, 6-1 team. Man, if 2 or 3 of those things didn't work out, if JJ got hurt week 2, if AJ Green was washed up and ended up not playing, if the running game wasn't there, but everything has worked. Everything has been positive, and I just don't want to. I don't want you to be too harsh on yourself or us. That like, man, how did we miss this one? It's a crazy thing. I mean, that's what's fun about the NFL. Every year,
Yeah.
like they always say, there's always 4 teams that made the playoffs that'll miss it, and 4 teams that miss the playoffs that'll make it. And I mean, even from the neutral perspective, you look at the top 10, and it's like, man, any one of these matchups, any one of these teams playing the other, it would be so fun to watch. And the playoffs are going to be amazing. But that's still 10 weeks out. But again, we had the same top 10. Chargers deserved a spot. I had the Browns, you had the Saints at 12. But I mean, like,
Yeah.
the Cardinals, I don't know if anyone could have predicted them to be this good, especially with the schedule, too, beating the Rams. And now
Yeah.
they got a schedule break without Russ. So
Talk about AJ Green for a second. So let's put things in perspective of if it's working or not. Okay. So 2018 was a bad season for him. He was basically hurt. 46 catches for less than 700 yards and 6 touchdowns. He did not play in 19. In 2020, he played in a very limited role with Burrow, mind you. 47 catches, 523 yards, 2 touchdowns. Arizona.
through 7 games.
He has 24 catches this year. We are, not even halfway through the season, okay? He has 400 yards, which is good for a career high 16.9 yards per catch. He's basically a deep threat for this team now, and 3 touchdowns. Again, we are not halfway through the season.
Yeah, if you double that, you look at when we're entering late December, he's going to be close to 50 catches, approaching 1,000 yards with 7 or 8 touchdowns.
As the second receiver on the team, it
Maybe
truly.
even third. You got Christian Kirk, Rondell Moore too. D Hop's where it starts. Nuke.
Yeah, he's totally working. Obviously D Hopkins is doing his thing, but yeah, I just think that what they would do to Tampa, as far as a matchup goes, it's like they're the complete. They are the blueprint to beat them. They are literally the blueprint. They even have the pass rush to do it. I'm not saying they would. Again, I picked Tampa to represent the NFC, but I would have a tough time betting against them.
I mean, you just look at the NFC, and the secondary is the weak point for the
Bucks.
Packers with Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, and company. Cowboys, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. They're getting Michael Gallup back. The Rams, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods.
But you named a couple of teams there, so you're not completely wrong. The Packers aren't stopping Tampa scoring. Not even a chance. Dallas, they're coming together. Defensively, they look pretty good. Okay, though I think they're a little overhyped. Diggs is obviously a baller. The rest of their defense is okay. Who else did you say just now? The Rams. The Rams definitely have the defense. We've seen it. They did. That was by far Tampa's worst game of the year, but it was also LA's best game of the year. So
I'm just saying, like the capable defenses, sure, but I'm just meaning from attacking their defense, trying to keep up offensively on the scoreboard.
yeah,
A lot of those teams have like really, really good passing games. So I mean, like,
everyone's in the passing game these days now.
Yeah. But seriously though, I mean the Packers, Cowboys, Rams, they're all in our top 6 teams.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And so is Tampa. That's why the NFC playoffs is a fucking gauntlet. I mean, if they sneak in a wild card spot after they get him back, you'll have Russell Wilson with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett as a wild card team.
Yeah.
Say Tampa's the 2 seed behind the Cardinals and the Seahawks sneak in as the 7 seed. You got Russell Wilson traveling to you. I don't know if you really want to see Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett in the first round of the playoffs.
I don't care if Seattle is sub 500.
The Vikings.
If they're on your schedule and Russell Wilson's lining up against you, you could lose that game.
Yeah. And like say the Vikings end up making a run and be a wild card team. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Christian Kirk. I mean, there's so many good teams in the NFL.
Completely agree. It's
going to be a lot of fun, but man, that's still 10 weeks out, guys. Pump the brakes.
Yeah, that's still a while out. I just realized it's getting dark, and I never turned my light on. So literally, I've been potting in the dark. I don't know if you can even see
Yeah,
me,
you're in the
but
dark. We can see it from time to time, but it's been getting worse and worse as it gets darker and darker.
it's getting darker, and I'm just like I'm here home alone, just potting with you, and I'm just like it's like a black screen here. Anyways, that's a wrap for today. A day late, guys. Sorry, the kids wanted me to take them to a small trick or treat outing last night, so we're a day late, not a dollar short. Hopefully, we did the pod right this week. Got you the top 10 teams. Got you a couple discussion questions, and answered the mailbag. Anything else, Brad?
Nope, go Steelers. About to get them Browns this weekend.
Guys, check out Spotify Green Room if you haven't already. Live every Sunday, 11 to 12, talking about all your favorite NFL matchups. We've been getting a lot of great feedback. It's definitely the way that we envisioned our live shows being when we first started this. Unfortunately, they just never got there, but they're there now. Please check it out. And it's rivalry week. Michigan State. Go blue. Beat little bro. And we'll see you guys next time. Real talk.
Later.